Have you noticed this alcohol does not make you someone else? It makes you louder than your fear. Some people become loving, some become angry. Some finally say what they have been rehearsing silently for years. And suddenly you are saying things you swear you never think. Alcohol does not create a new personality. It reveals something that was already waiting. This is for people who have noticed they become louder, quieter, softer, or sharper when they drink. For people who have watched friends turn into strangers after 2 glasses of wine. For people who wake up the next morning wondering, was that really me last night? If you believe alcohol simply makes people reckless, this is not for you. But if you are curious about why the same substance unlocks completely different versions of different people, stay here. This is not an excuse for harmful behavior, and it is not an attack on alcohol or the people who drink. This is an explanation. A look at the quiet science behind why inhibition falls, identity shifts, and personality bends when alcohol enters the body. Understanding is not the same as justifying. By the end of this video, you will understand 3 things. Why alcohol does not affect everyone the same way. Why the version of you that appears when drinking is deeply personal. And how alcohol acts less like a switch and more like a spotlight. This is not about alcohol itself. It is about the mind it reveals. As you listen, think about this. Which version of you shows up when you drink? The talker, the observer, the emotional one, the reckless one, or the one who finally feels free? Keep that version in mind. Think about the first hour at a party. The music is not loud yet. People are still holding their cups instead of dancing. Everyone is smiling but guarded. This is the inhibition filter at work. People are already feeling things. Interest, boredom, attraction, irritation, but they are carefully regulating how much of it leaks out. Then the first drink settles in. Not enough to blur vision, not enough to slur words, just enough to loosen the internal grip. Suddenly, one person starts talking more freely. They tell stories they usually keep short. They laugh louder than usual. This is the anxiety filter thinning. Their mind stops checking every sentence for approval. They are not more interesting than before. They are simply less afraid of being seen. Across the room, someone else grows quieter. Their smile fades. They stare into their drink longer than they should. This is emotional containment weakening. Alcohol is lifting the barrier that normally keeps unresolved feelings compartmentalized. The feelings were always there. Now they are closer to the surface. Later in the night, someone snaps over something small. A joke lands wrong. A comment feels personal. This is not sudden anger. This is stored frustration finally finding an opening. Alcohol did not cause the reaction. It reduced the pause that usually prevents it. That pause, the half second where the brain says, wait, think, do not say, that is governed by the prefrontal cortex. Alcohol dulls that pause. So reactions move faster than reflection. Words arrive before editing. Emotions express themselves before context can catch up. This is why people often say, I did not mean to say that, but the truth is they did mean it. They just usually stop themselves in time. Alcohol removes the timing buffer, not the values, not the beliefs, just the delay, which is why the version of someone you see when drinking feels honest but unfiltered familiar, but sharper recognizable, but exaggerated. Alcohol does not transform people. It speeds them up past their usual restraint, and whatever part of them has been waiting for expression, whether confidence, sadness, affection, or resentment, will be the first thing to speak. 2 people can drink the exact same amount, same glasses, same timing, same setting, and look like they are on completely different substances. One is laughing, leaning forward, touching arms, telling stories. The other is withdrawn defensive, scanning the room. This is where most people get confused. They assume tolerance explains it, body size, metabolism, experience. But tolerance only explains how fast alcohol enters the bloodstream. It does not explain what alcohol activates once it gets there. What matters more than tolerance is personality. Alcohol is not a creator. It is an amplifier. It turns up what already exists beneath restraint. Take someone who is naturally social but careful. They think quickly, feel warmth toward others, but hold themselves back to avoid embarrassment or rejection. When alcohol enters their system, that caution softens. Their friendliness no longer gets filtered. Their humor comes out fully formed. They appear magnetic not because alcohol added charm, but because it removed hesitation. Now take someone who is naturally emotional but highly controlled. They feel deeply but have learned to contain it, to stay composed, to not burden others. Alcohol loosens that containment. Suddenly, feelings move closer to the surface. Their voice trembles. Their eyes hold emotion longer than usual. They do not become dramatic. They become visible. Then there is the impulsive personality. Quick reactions, strong instincts, a tendency to act first and process later. In daily life, this is moderated by self-control. Rules, routines, consequences. Alcohol weakens that moderation. So impulses that were once slowed now move freely. Jokes turn sharp. Decisions happen without pause. Emotions spike without warning. To an observer, it looks like unpredictability, but internally it feels like acceleration. This is why the same alcohol produces affection in one person, confrontation in another, and silence in someone else. The substance is consistent. The personalities are not. Alcohol does not insert traits. It removes the barriers that keep them in check. It does not choose who you become. It reveals which part of you has been waiting for space. That is why people often say, I am not like that when I am sober. And that may be true, because sobriety is effort, structure, restraint. Alcohol removes effort. And what remains is not a stranger, but a louder version of something already familiar. Alcohol does not decide who speaks. Your personality does. Alcohol just hands it the microphone. Alcohol does something unusual to memory. It does not erase it, and it does not simply blur it, it separates it. One system weakens while another stays fully awake. Working memory begins to soften. This is the part of your mind that keeps context online. Consequences, timelines, logic. It is what reminds you this feeling will pass. This conversation can wait. This moment is not the whole story. Alcohol lowers its volume, but emotional memory does not fade with it. Emotional memory stores how experiences felt, not when they happened, but how they landed. It remembers tone loss, humiliation, longing, relief. It does not care about dates or closure. So when alcohol dulls working memory, emotion remains unfiltered and immediate. Feelings rise without their original context. A memory is no longer something that happened years ago. It feels like something happening now. An old wound does not feel healed. It feels exposed. A desire you learned to ignore suddenly feels urgent, as if it has been waiting patiently for permission to speak. This is why someone can cry over a comment that seems small. Why a song can open something they thought was closed. Why a face across the room can pull emotions from another chapter of life. Alcohol has not created new meaning. It has removed distance. Without working memory, holding perspective in place, emotion fills the entire mental space. This is also why confessions happen. Things people were never planning to say. Things they had decided were better left untouched. The intention was always there, but sobriety kept it contained. Alcohol weakens containment, so truths surface without strategy. Apologies arrive without preparation. Long-held thoughts finally cross the threshold into sound. Later, people often say, I do not know why I said that. But the reason is simple. The logic that normally says this is not the time. This is not safe. This does not need to be said was quiet. Emotion was not. Alcohol lowers the volume of reason. It does not silence it completely, but it lets feeling take the lead. And when emotion leads, it does not speak carefully. It speaks honestly, not always accurately, not always kindly, but honestly. That is why alcohol-fueled moments can feel raw, intimate, overwhelming, or regrettable. They are emotional truths spoken without scaffolding. Alcohol does not give emotion strength. It removes the structures that usually hold it back. And when those structures loosen, whatever emotion has been waiting the longest is often the first to step forward. There is a layer to alcohol that has nothing to do with chemistry. It is social. The moment alcohol enters a room, the rules change quietly. Not written, not announced, but understood. People relax not just because of what alcohol does to the brain, but because of what it does to expectation. There is an unspoken agreement. Judgment will be softer tonight. Mistakes will be interpreted generously. Words will be forgiven more easily. Alcohol creates a social buffer. So people do not just feel different. They feel allowed. Allowed to speak without perfect wording. Allowed to laugh too loudly. Allowed to admit attraction without embarrassment. Someone who has been wanting to flirt finally does. Not because alcohol created desire, but because it removed the fear of being misread. Someone who has been holding resentment finally speaks. Not because alcohol caused anger, but because it made confrontation feel survivable. Someone who has been emotionally contained finally softens. Their guard lowers, their voice slows. They stop performing strength. Alcohol changes the cost of expression. It lowers the perceived penalty for being real. This is why honesty appears. Not polished honesty, not strategic honesty, but blunt, unprotected truth. People say things like, I probably should not say this, but, and then they do. What follows is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is clumsy. Sometimes it is poorly timed, but it is rarely accidental. Alcohol gives people cover. Cover to drop the mask they wear to be liked, respected, or safe. Cover to stop pretending they are unaffected or unbothered. And sometimes the version of us that emerges is confusing. It does not match how we see ourselves sober. It feels unfamiliar even to us. But that does not mean it is fake. It means fear is no longer running the room. Without fear managing expression, parts of the self that normally stay hidden take up space. This is why alcohol can feel liberating for some and unsettling for others. Liberating because it reveals freedom. Unsettling because it reveals truth without armor. Sometimes the person who appears after a few drinks is not who we are without alcohol. It is who we are without fear of consequence. And that difference matters, because fear shapes behavior more than personality ever could. Alcohol does not remove identity. It removes the conditions that force us to hide it. The next time you notice a version of yourself emerging while drinking, pause mentally. Ask, what is this version trying to express? What does it want that I normally withhold? What fear keeps this part of me hidden when I'm sober? You might learn more about yourself in that moment than in years of self-reflection. The drunk version of someone is not their true self, but it is not fake either. It is an unedited self, one shaped by personality, history, emotion, and biology. One that deserves understanding, not romanticizing, and not demonizing. Alcohol reveals. It does not invent. If this made you think about yourself or someone you love, sit with that thought for a moment. And if you enjoy exploring the quiet science behind everyday human behavior, this is what we do here. Every version of you exists all the time. Alcohol simply decides which one gets the microphone. The question is not which version is real. The question is, which version are you listening to when the noise falls away?